Good morning, everyone. This is Don Patterson from Tandem Wireless. I just wanted to go over a few things today with everyone, pertaining to the job board and how things work and different things that you should look at and observe. That way you can maximize your potential in the job board. So I'm just going to bring up a few things here within Field Nation, our main platform that all of us utilize. As we go through it, I'm just going to explain some of the key things that are most important to every one of us that work on the platform. Okay, looks like I had some filters, so I'm sorry. Apologize. So here I am logging in, and I'm looking at different opportunities. Within these opportunities, under work, I'll be able to find different jobs in our area that are important to us. Most technicians cover like a 30-mile radius around their home area, doing support calls for the emergency support jobs as well as the planned projects. But basically everything you see on this job board is overflow that these vendors couldn't get to, so we take up the slack. In doing so, it makes us look good and gives us a good reputation with them so that they'll be able to complete their overall project. So it's a win-win. When we get work, they build a relationship with us, and eventually they start pulling us into planned projects that they have going on internally, which we have going on now. With various vendors, they'll open up trouble tickets directly through our CRM on the website. But we're looking at all the different available jobs, and say we want to look at one we're thinking about doing. So I'm going to click on a work order here. Just explain some of the things that people are seeing. Now you'll notice if you have less than 10 work orders done, you won't see the company name, the vendor. You have to complete 10 work orders in the job board in order to take advantage of seeing the vendor's name and information. So that's one thing I wanted everybody to be aware of. But we go down through here and we see time to approval, and this is usually how many days it takes a vendor to approve a work order for us, so that, once we complete the job, as long as our paperwork's correct and things of that nature, they'll usually approve it within 3 days. It gives you a better guideline. But here you have the service description of the work order that you're looking at. And you want to read about this because this is really the hot topics about the work order. Many parts of the work order will be nothing more than just a template. It's just something that they'll dish out and say, hey, we've got something for like 2 hours for you to do. And by assigning it to you, it allows them to put insurance on you and get you in the door. And usually we find out that most of these jobs that we're going to go do that are 2 hours end up 6 or 8 hours, 10 hours. Not every time, but a lot of times, because really our vendor doesn't really know what's going on except for a brief description that some manager on duty gave them through a trouble ticketing system with CompuCom, NCR, Vital, Insight Global, whichever vendor it might be that's supporting that particular establishment or franchise. But as we go through this, we'll see that we can read all about the work order and find out what they require to actually be done. And they'll tell you different issues that's related to the situation. You can read all about this different information. On the right hand side, it talks about how it's a fixed pay, so it's not hourly. It doesn't matter how long it takes you. As long as you get it done, they're going to pay my company this amount. And yes, they charge my company a service fee, which is 10%. So the end result, completing this work order, my company will make $202.50. Regular employees that start out with Tandem Wireless, they start out at 60%. So you can basically multiply 20.25 times 6, and that'll tell you how much you're going to make. Just move the decimal point over. And then if you've done 50 work orders or better, then you'll get 70%. So you would multiply 20.25 times 7. There's your pay. That's what you would earn for doing that particular job for my company. And it's good pay. You can't shake a stick at it. But with the location, normally you'll have a map. For whatever reason, it's not loading right now. But it doesn't matter. What we want to look at is these different tasks that the vendors ask us to do while we're on site. So the initial task that we have to do, that's prep. That means it's being done before you ever go to the place. A lot of times you'll see 3 or 4 items under prep. But in this case, there's only one, set ETA. And the ETA is basically saying, agree to this. They'll usually give you a time that they want you to show up on site. So when they say set ETA, you're going to put 8/22/2018 at 9 a.m. and you're going to show up 15 minutes prior to that time and report yourself to the manager on duty. Call your vendor and check in, let them know you're on site, and you're going to go make sure the equipment's on site. And then you verify the equipment and let them know it's there. And then you'll call tech support and let tech support know you're about to do some work on some of their equipment and what you're doing. And they'll give you approval. And then you proceed to do your job. But when you check in, when you get to the location, you can check mark this, and it'll timestamp your GPS and time so that it then gets added to your hours. And then you check out when you're done. But always have photos of the work being performed. And I'll show you an example of that. We'll go back to opportunities. Okay. Sorry, opportunities. You'll notice that you can print the work order, or you can say you're not interested, stuff like that as well. We'll go over that more in detail here in a little bit. But I want to pull up a work order here that has more details to it. POS preventive maintenance. I know a little bit about those, we all do. And it's really about cleaning, seasonal cleaning for Walmarts usually. We'll take a look here. POS preventive maintenance, right there. Okay, so now we have the point of sale, cleaning that needs to be done. And what I wanted to really point out is the details. They usually give you a badge for each location. They tell you physical requirements that you have to do, what you have to do when you arrive, what you have to do upon completion and closeout, which are these different bullet signs. Most every work order gives you detail of what you need to have and what you need to do to complete the job. Not only that, is they usually have these attachments that tell you how to do the job and a badge that gives you authorization to be on site with their company name, CompuCom, NCR, Essential, whatever the case might be. But we know it's going to be a Walmart because we can read that here. And we know it's Essential. It's going to be Essential Enterprises. Our dispatchers can call Essential and get this assignment applied to anybody that requests it. It's easy. We have a relationship with them. They give us whatever we want. And as you see, they have the PDF for you to download. You can hold the control key and click this and download it now if you want. It's a little trick I learned with both documents. But you'll notice they have a lot more things to do. And you have to read these for prep. That means, like I said, before you go on site. So you got to set an ETA, that's estimated time of arrival. You have to print procedures, document attached to this work order, titled Walmart PM Procedures, so you have to print the PDF. And there's a required sign-off sheet, and register completion form is located on page 8 of it. So that's how they make sure that you download that. Many of the technicians will use a program called Zodo, XODO, Zodo, and it allows you to edit PDF documents on your phone or tablet, touchscreen, whatever. And you can get signatures with it and everything, and you don't have to print nothing out. But a lot of us are old-fashioned, and we like to print things out and get signatures, and then you can just take a picture of it and upload the picture. But they tell you to download your badge and wear it at all times. And then on site, when you get there, you check in. Now you click that button and it'll green up. And then you go through the different steps. Check in via the Field Nation app. If not available, call Central. Provide the manager on duty with an incident number. Contained in the work order to gain authorization to proceed with your work. So up here's an authorization number that they aren't showing you right now, but it'll show up. And it'll probably be right here, or right here. Hard to tell. Till all that will be revealed when they give it to you. But you go through these different steps and follow them. They're not hard. It's about taking photos before you do your work, and take photos when you're done with your work, then pretty everything up when you're done, then check out, call Central and check out. You know, they missed one step, which is checking out with tech support, but I guess you don't have to call tech support in this case, because you're not working on any hardware. You're just cleaning everything with cotton swabs and paper towels and alcohol, and then you're going to use a dust dry vac to suck the dust bunnies out of the computer by opening it up about 6 inches, and you suck all the dust bunnies out of the RAM and the vents for the power supply. But it's all right there, easy to get to. I can knock these out in like 2 hours, and they're scheduling them for like 6.5. So you really have to work slow just to get your hours. And that's another thing. If a company's going to give you 6 hours to do a job, use 6 hours to do the job. They're getting paid for it. You might as well too. If you don't track 6 hours, then you're not going to get paid for 6 hours. You know, if you only do it in 2, they're not going to overpay you for overperforming. You know, so take the slotted amount of time to do your work. Don't rush unless it's a fixed pay. If it's fixed pay, go rush. And this one's letting you fixed pay, that's great. Go do it, knock it out, get it done in 2 hours. But if it was hourly, normally they're 6.5 hours. And, you know, so this one here, they already know. We'll go back. I want to see a couple more opportunities and show you guys a couple more things. I'll probably look at some work orders that people have assigned and discuss a couple topics there that are key elements and very important. So as soon as everything loads, it's a little slow because of the recording itself. But we got different tabs: routed, counter, requested, assigned, pending, completed, declined. These all refer to you. Of course, I see a bigger screen where I see everybody's information. These are all the work orders routed to us right now, and there's a great deal of them that we can just do. And all we have to do is accept. So you see like 23 of them routed. All these routed work orders, whoever they apply to in these different cities and states, it means one of our guys is close to it, and we should accept that work order. Go do it. You're making 60% or 70%, or seniors are making 80%. That's basically, once you get to 100 work orders, you make 80%, and that's everybody's goal. You know, 50 work orders, 70%. 10 work orders, you get to see who the customer is. You know, until you get 10 work orders done, like you saw, you couldn't even see who it was for. But I guarantee if I go to like my name and then I click a vendor and an opportunity, I can see the information related to it. Oops, I always have to single click because we're in a single window here. But anyways, it's Hello Tech for this job. It's desktop, laptop. I can see their phone number, all the information, and that's why dispatchers call the vendors and handle a lot of things, because they know the phone numbers for all the vendors, they know their information, they have direct point of contacts with these vendors that they just call, and they'll say, I've got 7 different employees trying to get your work orders in these different states, let's get them assigned. And their contact will assign those work orders, and they do that daily, if not 2 or 3 times a day, because work orders show up on the job board constantly, and whether it's a planned project that they dump in there, or something that's an emergency work order that they have to throw out there to see if somebody bites on it because they're too busy to get to it, different things like that. But long story short, all the work orders and stuff come through here, and our vendors have to pay for it. Every work order they publish, so they're not going to publish all the work that they have. They're only going to fish. They're going to throw out a couple work orders, see who's reliable, and then once they know you're reliable, they'll build that rapport with you, and they'll start calling you directly and asking you if you want to do this job or this project. Some's a week long, some's a month long, and that's great. That's what you want, and that's what we're here for. And you have a dispatch team that's going to support you with materials, fuel if you need it to get to work, worst case scenario, a dispatch team that'll help you with technical material if you're on a job and you're too busy and you need to get to some material, or your text message or WhatsApp, somebody will respond and give you an answer. And even if you just need somebody to hold your hand through a job because you're unfamiliar with it, but you know 90% of it, but there's 10% you need help with, a dispatcher will be there available for you to call, and they'll walk you through the rest of the project to get it completed out and help you with the paperwork upload if needed and things of that nature. But we always have documentation. Documentation is everything. That's really what our job is all about. It's not really even about the hardware we're installing or anything like that. It's the documentation and paper trail that follows us. So that's another thing that I wanted to point out. But we'll notice on this work order, I can print it, I can say I'm not interested, but you notice it's in Youngstown and they're actually trying to route it to me, so I can accept it or counteroffer. If I counteroffer, they might not see the counteroffer, because counteroffers go to this automated system. And if it qualifies, it'll automatically agree to it, and if it doesn't qualify, it'll kind of alert them. But if they're not watching their alerts, they might not see it. So oftentimes if I use counteroffer, I'll also send a message. And I always send messages and say, hi, I'm with Tandem Wireless. I can do this for you. And most of these vendors know me and the company. So, there's over 800 plus vendors that I service directly that will recognize that statement. Hi, I'm with Tandem, I can help you. And they will give you the work order. And it helps alleviate some of the strain from the dispatchers having to call and get it assigned to you. And it allows you to get assignments quicker and faster, especially when you hit counteroffer. But in this case, I don't have to counteroffer. As long as I like the pay in the details, I'll just accept it. If I don't like the pay, I'll counteroffer. If it's a drive, which it is, 41 miles, you want to charge like 30 cents a mile. 41 miles means you're going to have about 90 miles in your drive, because it's always off about 5 miles. So 45 and 45 is 90 round trip, 30 cents a mile, you do the math, $27 in fuel is what you need, and you would counteroffer. Let's look at what the counteroffer offers us. Your name would show up here, shows the date, the amount. You can say I want to counteroffer the pay because I want more pay. Now this is important. If you see that it's fixed pay, counteroffer with fixed pay. 9 times out of 10, if a vendor can do hourly, they list it as hourly. If they can do fixed, they list it as fixed. They don't sway from that one way or the other. So if you counteroffer and say, oh, I want hourly, they're not going to do that. Or if it's an hourly job and you say, I want fixed, they're normally not going to do that. But our dispatchers can call them ahead of time if you ask them to, and try to get fixed. And if they're allowed to, they will do it for you. That way you get a fixed pay for a job, so you don't have to spend all night being there you can get your work done efficiently and proficiently, that's fine. But then they have a per device and blended. Blended's something we use often because we try to get a 2 hour minimum and things of that nature. So we'll go blended, we want a fixed amount, blah blah blah, for up to 2 hours. And then we want an hourly amount, blah blah blah, for up to there. And it doesn't necessarily give us a 2 hour minimum pay, but we put in here reason for counteroffer. We can put 2 hour minimum requested. That way it's worth us leaving the home. We want to get at least 2 hours work in it. In this case, it's fixed pay for 70. That's basically a 2 hour job at probably 35 an hour to the company. You can do the math. Long story short, you can ask for more money if you think it rates more money. And you also have a schedule change that you can request. It barely ever happens. Schedule change requests for counteroffers, sometimes they allow you to do it, but most times they do not. So it's one of those things I recommend you don't try to do unless you really don't care if you get the job or not, and you really do have a conflict. So go ahead and try that. But you never know. If the vendor's familiar with you, they might do it. Especially once you become a preferred provider, 50 work orders plus, they might do it. But anyways, you have another option for expenses where you can list, freight for transporting something, personal material costs, which is usually your Cat 5 cable, real material cost, which is like a bill of landing for a project, scope of work change, taxes, travel expense, and that's what we list for fuel. And uncategorized, if there's something else that you want to list on there that you don't think's in that category, and then a brief description and the amount of it. And you always want to add photos of these items, and you can add expenses by adding more additional expenses and things like that. But that's pretty much it for the counter offer of what we can do. Now I'm going to hit cancel. Now, withdraw this counter offer if it's not accepted in 30 minutes. If you check mark that, it's going to pull your counter offer back after 30 minutes, and you can set that to hours or days. I don't ever set it. I try to leave my counter offer out there, but always remember that when you do a counter offer, you do have to send a message to them. And the reason I say that is messages go directly to their cell phone. When you write a message, it alerts them, just like it alerts you when they write you a message. Nice, right? So it's basically your first point of contact to your vendor, is to be very polite, very professional, and very diligent with what you say to them. But you introduce yourself and say, hey, I can do this for you. I just put in a counter offer. And they'll get online on their PDA or their tablet or their whatever that they're using to be on the network. Most all of them are mobile like us. And they'll look it up and check you out, and as long as you're decent, they'll give you the job. And otherwise our dispatchers are going to call them and get it assigned to you. But it doesn't help for you to write a message. It saves time. That's about it for that one. We can go back to the details page. Like I said, we can see all the information related to them. The different options that they want us to do during site, off site. Sometimes you'll click these check marks on your phone and your data is not working right, and they won't green up. And you just can't complete that work order. That's really what I'm going to touch bases on right next, is when you have difficulties completing out a work order, how you can get past it. Just because your phone data might be acting up, what you want to do is open up your web browser instead of the app. Because your web browser always has data. It's just slow, 6 kilobits. They never shut it off all the way because they want it to get its updates and different things like that. So they let your browser run. Long story short, open up FieldNation with the browser and then log in. FieldNation.com, log in with your username and password, and explore it from that direction, and you'll be able to close out your work order. Now I'm going to look at some assigned work orders, so I'm going to have to change my name, and we're probably going to go to Patrick Van or something like that. I think he had some recent ones that were good examples, if I remember correctly. Huh. Oh, there they were. Let's see here. Oh, duh. Yeah, right click, left click, whatever. So here we got a work order that he's done, and you can read all about it. So we see up here time logged was 1.58 hours in the top left, and then we see the work order ID number up here. That's important to recognize. It was part of a bundle, so he had 2 work orders for the same project. This one was paying an estimate of $81 with an expense we see. And we know it's Patrick Van doing it, and that's his phone number, and here's the manager or vendor that he's doing the work for, Aaron Pleka. It's Insight Global, one of our favorite companies. And, you know, it's got some messages. They're in red because I haven't read them, but he has. And it's not an alert or nothing like that. If there was an alert, you'd have a red bar across the whole screen. But we'll look at those messages later. He has an expense sheet here, expense rate sheet. It's fixed, estimated amount $90. So it's a fixed amount, $90 to do this job, no matter how long it takes him to do it. They say they'll give him $90 to the company. So he makes 70%, 7 times 9, gives you his wage that he made on this. Now he had travel, $20 he asked for, and they awarded it to him because he called him up and asked for it before he even requested the work order. And that's what you want to do, is contact your dispatcher so they'll call and request anything that you need fuel for. And right here is where it tells you you need fuel, 36 miles. Here's the work, and then if I zoomed out, it would tell me where he was, but we know he's 36 miles away from it. Long story short, service fee. My company pays us 10% service fee on the work. Then you have the work order, total of $81, and this is what I actually multiply. So you got 81. You have a schedule. It was on this date, this time. And this is how long they expected it to take, 2 hours. And here's the address. Long story short, he had a series of different events that he had to check off, but before we look at that, I want to see how much time he actually worked. He actually did work 2 hours. So they were accurate on their estimate. If he had worked over that, more than 2 hours, then he would have requested for additional pay, just like he did on the expenses for fuel. An option will show up here. When this is incomplete, you'll see options up here, and I'll show you one here in a moment that somebody will have open. And actually, I'll do it just a full round. I'm going to hear about it tomorrow from Patrick, but watch. Oh no, I don't want to put in an excuse. We'll wait. I'll do it with another one. But anyway, we see that the client has documents that they gave him to download and to review, and it basically tells him step by step what he has to do there, when, how, and why. And gosh, most of it doesn't even apply. So you always look at the service description, because a lot of times you're only going to do a portion of what's in these forms. These forms will cover everything that this company does, and you'll have to pick out the chapter that applies. And so you have to read the whole thing ahead of time and make sure you understand which applies and which doesn't, because sometimes they'll put stuff in the last page that applies to the stuff in the first chapter, and you're like, oh, if I only knew that now. So you have to read everything and become familiar with their things, because eventually you're going to do everything they do anyway. And sometimes they'll give you tests on each of these items and stuff they do, and those are fun. But you see, he's got a authorization badge. You can click that and it'll show it to you. But he had to set an ETA. He had to have these following tools. They said make sure you got a screwdriver, putty knife, rubber mallet, small hammer, glue gun, and a rag. So he brought all that and checkmarked it. It says review the training documentation. He reviewed that and checkmarked it. And then a couple days later, he goes to the job, drives there, checks in, calls support, reads the floor plan to determine the equipment to be removed, verifies blah blah blah, uploads and takes photos of the stuff before he disconnects it, does what he has to do, takes pictures of it after it's, disconnected and cleaned up, collects a signature, faxes a copy of the information to these numbers, calls this number to check out, and then he checks out on the app by clicking that button, and it'll green up. And if you ever have trouble in the app, use the browser version, like I said before, and then these items will green up right. No problem. And if you're uploading photos, only upload 2 or 3 at a time, because there's a 20 megabit limit. So if it's over that, you'll just keep getting interrupted, and the upload will never happen. So there's a little bit of warning for you. You know, she's got the pictures there. You can add a note and say what it is. That's the signature page. I prefer you to add a note and say signature page. In fact, I'll have to do it for him. I can tell it's a signature page just by seeing it. Anyway, and then he's got signatures here as well, which is great, which is on the app itself. And so we reviewed this one. Everything looks good. We can report a problem if there was one. There's not. You always want to give a rating. If he didn't give a rating, this would say give rating or whatever. And he did. He always give a 5-star. I don't care if they were the biggest headache in the world. You always give them a 5-star. And say everything was great. Kiss their butt, because they're our customer and they're the ones paying us. So we always kill them with kindness. And in fact, if you're on a job and you're ever, run out of budget, usually when these jobs out here and they say estimated duration 2 hours, when you get close to that 2-hour mark, you got to call your vendor, which in this case is his Erin Pleka. You'll call her at the number, or else you'll call Essential option one, and check in with them and say, hey, I'm closing in on the 2-hour mark of this project. It was fixed pay. I'm looking like it's going to take another 2 or 3 hours because we ran into such and such problem, or whatever the case might be. Can I get authorization for additional hours? And they will. And in the case of fixed pay, basically, you would take the 2 and divide it into the 90, and that tells you that you rate $45 an hour to my company. And then you as an employee would get 60% of that, which is 6 times 4.5, or 7 times 4.5 if you're a middle range employee, or if you're a high range, it's 80%. And that's 100 work orders or more done. And that's your goal. Everyone's goal is to get to 80%. Or to be a dispatcher where they can make commissions off of the general employee populace. So that's a good position to get within the company of Tandem Wireless as well. But I think I covered everything on this particular work order, so I'm going to go back again and I'm going to find another victim to pull apart, something that is being worked on but pending. And I bet I can find one that's with Joe Born-A-Country, I bet. One of our managers. He usually has 1 or 2 work orders that are delayed because the customer's not ready or something like that. So I'm going to pick on his work orders a little bit. Yep, see, assignment at risk. That's delayed. This is one that was due back in July 30th, and I already know the customer's not ready. I look at everybody's stuff. That's part of management. All the managers do. We try to keep up and kick everybody in the butt if they forget to upload documentation or get a signature. You never really want to forget doing that. That's how you get paid. If you don't have a signature, if you don't have uploaded documentation, nobody's getting paid. So, that's a must. Don't ever leave a site without it. And also, do your paperwork while you're there. Before you call tech support to leave a work order, or before you check out with a manager on duty, before you check out with a vendor, always do your paperwork and your pictures there at site and upload them. No matter how long it takes, that's part of your job. After that's done, then you can check out with tech support and let them troubleshoot things and test. And then you can check out with your vendor. And then you can check out with your dispatcher and go home successful, knowing that you're probably going to get paid before you get home, as far as to the company. And the way payroll works, everybody gets paid Monday. So anything that clears by Tuesday pays out the following Monday. It's that simple, because we're going to this new weekly payroll instead of the whole bi-weekly payroll, which just became annoying for its own good and well reasons. But anyways, as we look at this work order, we notice a lot of different things from the other work orders, but it's all informational. It says the status assigned at risk. Condition at risk, Joe, this number, has not checked in. Time logged 0 hours, 7:30, 12 a.m., 8:13, blah, blah, blah. So it's a general alert. And normally I would be alarmed by it, but I know what's going on. They're waiting on the customer here. Joe is having trouble getting a hold of the customer. And that's the only number they have for the customer. So they can't proceed until he schedules this. Because in this work order it says, hey, and I'm going to scroll down, but we'll go back up top. This is ergo motion. It says, hey, you have to set an ETA. And it asks you to contact the customer to do that. So we look at the service description. Required steps for tech must call the on-site client ASAP within 24 hours of being assigned this work order to initiate contact and inform the client that they will be performing the service and to schedule an appointment. Then it goes on to say, and the tech also needs to confirm that the on-site client is in possession of the parts. Tech must perform a completed bed inspection prior to installation. So you'll do, there's an inspection sheet that you check off different things as you inspect this bed for damages and things of that nature, because this is a maintenance agreement where they're replacing parts that have gone bad since they purchased this Ergomotion queen size bed. It's a head motor. They go bad, just wear and tear. It's life. But it's under a service agreement, and we get to reap the benefits of that service agreement by going out and installing this head motor in the bed that vibrates. And it tells you it's to perform a complete bed inspection and replace the lifting actuator and adjustable bed and residential or retail location, blah, blah, blah. And you can read all about this in your own time. But it goes through the different procedures of doing that activity. And it's quite simple, to be honest with you. Everything we do is very simple. That's why they call it smart hands. And it doesn't take any programming knowledge for anything that we do. It's all hardware. But here he can add an expense, and that's really what I wanted to talk about. If he went to this work order and said it was only going to take him an hour to do, and he was there for 5 hours, he's going to have to add expense, which is basically going to be additional labor. Oh wait, this is the travel expenses. Request pay increase. I'm sorry, haha, it got me. Request pay increase. And this is saying, hey, we're going to give you $90 for whatever, 1 or 2 hours. But if it took you 5 hours, you're going to want to request an increase based on 45 an hour or 90 an hour. If it said 90 for an hour, then it's 90 an hour. If it said 90 for 2 hours estimate, then it's 45 an hour. If it said 90 for 4-hour estimate, then of course that's like $22.50 or whatever, and it, stinky. But hey, it happens. We still do the work orders and get them completed out. That way our vendors can push them through and get them over with, and then they get more work orders. They're just like us, trying to appease their customer. What else did I want to say here? We've got contact information. This is the gentleman he's trying to contact. And personally, what I would recommend is for Joe to probably Google Jeffrey Hayes in that location. And I bet he finds a different number. They probably have this number wrong. You notice how there's a 6689? Yeah. Somebody messed up, a little dyslexic or something like that. I bet it's 6869. That's a more common number. Just saying. And then there's other things where I've done myself is switch the first number here and here, 5 and 3. That's a common mistake for the area code. So you might want to verify the area code for this area. in this zip code. Is that the right area code? That could be a simple problem there. And I know a lot of cell phones can be out of area code, but it's just a possibility. Me, I'm diligent. I use every avenue possible to get something completed because this represents $81 to my company, which is 7 times 8.1 for him. And I'm sure he'd like that in his pocket. And so, as he hears this video, I'm sure he's going to think about some of the things I just suggested. And, we all don't think of everything. That's why we have to stay in communication with each other, because each of us have tricks of the trade, little things that we think of that the other might not think of, that'll really help you be successful. And so you really want to communicate on WhatsApp or an email, build a rapport with your fellow employees, because we cross-train each other on everything. If there's something you don't know but want to know, we'll teach you and we'll show you and direct you on where to get the videos related to it and reference materials so you can research it, and tests so you can get certified in it. We help everybody and each other grow, because the more money I can help you make, the more money I'm going to make. It's a no-brainer. So let's help each other be successful. You can actually add a discount if you like a customer. I've done that before. They've had a problem canceling out a work order without paying the full amount or something. They'll ask you to do a discount so that they don't have to pay the full amount in order to cut costs. That's kind of slick thing to do to help them out sometimes if they're under budget. Then you got an expense rate sheet, which, there's no rate sheet uploaded, but if he uploaded one, it'd be there. Or they will list one. They'll upload one and tell you how much they'll pay for Cat 5 cable by the foot, how much they'll pay for conduit, how much they'll pay for whatever material that they needed for a job. Of course, Ergomotion doesn't need it, but other companies would. There'll be an expense sheet showing what they'll reimburse for face plates and doing a wall fish or what have you. It's all self-explanatory. So all you need to do is call this person, find their real number, and then you can set an ETA for this installation. Every work order has the ability to add files, miscellaneous files, shipments and tracking numbers, signatures. Just try to be thorough. The more thorough you are, the quicker you'll get paid. It's that simple. Now, if he wanted, he could remove this assignment because it's no fault of his own, but he don't want to. As soon as they figure out how to get in contact with this customer, then they're going to want to move forward with it, because Ergomotion is real flexible, and they're probably just waiting for the customer to call them back and say, where's my motor that was supposed to be here, kind of deal. And everybody's busy this time of the year, I suppose. But there's also been some changes. You can review those changes. Talks about how the schedule originally was here and there, and now it's between here and here, 13th instead of the 6th. So they're giving him time to accept changes and such. Really, he should accept this, even though it's been edited. They're going to edit it again today because they can't get a hold of the customer yet. But if he's proactive, I bet he can figure out what the customer's real number is, and he could maybe, I'm sure he's probably emailed them. Oh no, that's their email. Let me see. There it is. Elizabeth McLear. That's the location contact. Well, anyways, I think I covered enough for today. Again, thank you for being with Tandem Wireless. We hope to do everything needed to help you be successful. If you need anything, reach out to your manager, your dispatcher, keep each other informed, and just keep on doing your best, and that's all we can ask. So if you have any other questions, that's great. We'll take those after this. So thank you very much for participating, and have a great day.